Hi, this is Craig Pollard, and this is week three's assignment in class 632, Professor Powell. And we're going to be discussing a lesson plan on the Founding Fathers, specifically the leadership characteristics of the Founding Fathers that helped shape the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights. This is going to cover, specifically for 11th grade, California State Standard 11.1, and the entire unit would have taken over an entire week, but this specifically we're going to go over today is what would have been done in day one. The first thing that we would be doing are some pre-assessment tools, which is part of this assignment, and the two things that I was doing for the pre-assessment is a whole class discussion and some survey questions. The class would have received the survey questions when they first got in, told that they were non-graded, and that we would be going over them after the whole class discussion. As we go into the whole class discussion, what we're going to be talking about today really is the kind of temperament of the country leading up to us developing a Declaration of Independence, then Constitution and Bill of Rights. And so the first question that I have for the class is, what were some of the major influences of why the Declaration of Independence was created? Anybody have a answer there or a suggestion?
Yeah, I remember that the colonists were frustrated with the rule from overseas, from the king in Great Britain.
Yeah, great answer. If everybody heard that, that was they were frustrated with the control aspect of the king putting laws and things in place in our country that they really had no idea what was going on, and it was frustrating for all the constituents in the colonies. Any other things that were going on that, remember, there was some stuff that they also really disliked? Was it, oh, good answer, taxation without representation. And does anybody remember what one of the acts was that really got the country kind of upset, one of the first acts?
Well, there were a couple I remember. There was the Stamp Act, kind of started it off, but then the big one was what we remember is the Boston Tea Party.
Right, you probably studied that in 8th grade, the Boston Tea Party, exactly. And so that started kind of fueling the anger and kind of the entire country feeling like it was them against Great Britain. Yeah. Good stuff. So the second question we got here is, what were some of the reasons why our founding fathers felt the need to create a constitution? And kind of let me set the table again. So that Declaration of Independence was signed and delivered in July of 1776. We have now gotten to the point to where we felt a need now to create a constitution, so that there was a thing called the Articles of Confederation that were put together during the Revolutionary War, but now we felt the need for our founding fathers to get together to create a constitution. And what were some of the reasons why we felt we needed a constitution that the Articles of Confederation were not covering or helping the country?
Well, after the Revolutionary War, when we won the war, we ended up as a country instead of just a bunch of colonies. And the Founding Fathers realized that they needed to come up with something to unite the states.
Yeah, no, that's a great answer, of uniting the states and creating a federal government that really kind of existed with the Articles of Confederation, but really wasn't truly formalized. So that's a great answer. Is there any other things of why they felt the need for a constitution? What were some issues maybe that happened from the Revolutionary War that was causing trouble?
We were also in a large debt.
Great answer. Yeah, so if everybody heard that, the country was in significant war debt. And so what the problem was is there were some arguments going on as who should pay this debt. And you had these different countries. You had people that were farmers in the south, and you had more industrialized up in the north, and there was just issues of who had the money to pay for this. And the Founding Fathers had the foresight to realize that if we were really going to have a federal government, it actually had to have power, which meant it had to have money, and the only way to get money as a government is you have to tax the people. And that was really kind of one of the main discussions during their meetings during that time. No, great answers. Third question we have here is, so now we're coming up to meeting again, Founding Fathers, and they want to create this thing that they're calling the Bill of Rights, that we've all probably learned a little bit about in 8th grade, but why did all of a sudden we feel a need to have a Bill of Rights?
We needed a Bill of Rights because the Constitution did not address or contain a Declaration of Human Rights.
Yeah, exactly right. That human rights were not addressed at all. So So by not having human rights in there, what were some of, can you remember what the First Amendment was and how did that protect human rights?
The First Amendment had freedom of speech and religion freedom.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We had freedom of speech and freedom of religion, which were two things that a lot of people across the world did not have that, and those were some great ideas from the Enlightenment period that all of our founding fathers kind of researched from people like John Locke, that Jefferson really wanted to get into, the Constitution, but there was too many arguments during that time to actually get those placed in there, and so we finally got together and started developing these human rights. What's another amendment in that Bill of Rights that gets really discussed that today, that even affects us today, and we have a lot of arguments over that?
The right to bear arms.
Yeah, the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms, and that's a topic that we'll dive deeper into this unit, and something that I want you, class, to start thinking about right now, kind of the pros and cons of that. And it's an interesting thing is there was one of the founding fathers, actually I think two of them, that really were proposing in the Constitution an opportunity to have the right to change the Constitution with each generation. Anybody remember who that might have been? What founding fathers may have suggested that?
I don't remember. Maybe that was James Madison.
Yeah, that would have been a good thought, but it was actually Thomas Jefferson was the one that really brought that up, and Alexander Hamilton and Jefferson spoke many times about that topic. Unfortunately, they could not convince the rest of the founding fathers to implement that, and we'll kind of dive into that in a later topic as well, kind of diving deeper into some of the arguments that went on during the convention and the Constitution writing and the Bill of Rights. Good stuff to get us started, and then now what we're going to do is, if you guys would pull out your surveys, we're going to kind of go over all of the answers and kind of discuss with them. And the first one was just kind of a fun one where I put a picture up there for the founding fathers and just see if you guys could name them. Go ahead. Anybody come up with some ideas on that?
I think on the top might be Thomas Jefferson.
Uh-huh.
I think George Washington,
Yeah.
James Madison, and Benjamin Franklin.
Yeah, absolutely. You nailed them. Those are right. And some people argue, actually, it's kind of funny in this picture that some people argue that the top picture is not Jefferson, that it's Thomas Paine. But we'll leave that up to another day to discuss that. The second question: who was considered the father of the Constitution?
Thomas Jefferson.
Anybody else have an idea on that? Father of the Constitution.
I think Thomas Jefferson as well.
Yeah, and that's kind of before I started studying this as it become a teacher, that's what I would have thought too. But it was actually James Madison that is now considered the father of the Constitution. And we're going to kind of dive into that when we get more into the Constitution. Who presided over the Constitutional Convention?
George Washington.
Yeah, absolutely, George Washington. Anybody else? Well, I just gave it, said yes. Yeah, George Washington presided over the Constitution. Good answer. That was quick. Which of the four presidents never went to college? Interesting thing.
My guess was George Washington.
Maybe Thomas Jefferson.
Good guesses. Stacy, you were correct with George Washington, and it's fun reading about him that, interesting enough, that our first president did not attend college, but if you looked at his background growing up in the South, had a father that became ill, couldn't work, and had to kind of take over the family farm, and then was brought into the war on Great Britain's side early on. So, but amazing leader without going to college. You are correct, Miss Stacy. Which of the following famous founding fathers did not sign the Constitution?
I just guessed on this one and said Benjamin Franklin.
James Madison.
Well, Thomas Jefferson did not sign the Constitution, but it was because he was in Europe during the time as an ambassador for the U.S. and was not able to be there during the signing. Number 6 is, which ancient governments inspired the founding fathers most? So you have the options there of Greek and Roman, Sumerian and Egyptian, Olmec and Babylonian.
I think Greek and Roman.
That's what I wrote too.
Yeah, everybody, you're absolutely right on there. And what were some of the thoughts, or does anybody remember some of the great, Greek philosophers that wrote about democracy and stuff?
I I don't remember the names, but I remember the Senate and
Yeah, and that was Roman. But if you get a chance, write down Socrates and Plato, and those are two great ones that you can read more about how a lot of our founding fathers spent a great deal of time studying philosophies of Greece and actually French leaders on democracy. Number 7, which founding father believed the Constitution should be rewritten every generation? We kind of talked about it in our conversation, in our discussion.
Alexander Hamilton.
Alexander Hamilton, and who else?
I just guessed on this one again and said James Madison.
Good guesses. It was actually Thomas Jefferson. I think it went back more to him, is probably one of the deeper thinkers of the group and most educated. I think felt that it was important that every generation has different needs, and that's something we're going to really dive into later on in the unit. Question number 8 is, which Enlightenment concept influenced the framers of the Constitution? Absolutism, despotism, limited monarchy, or consent of the governed? If you need to look real quick on your phones, go ahead, but I know those are some big words that we can talk about later, but anybody have an idea on that one?
Consent of the
Oh,
government.
nailed it right out there, absolutely. That was kind of one of the main things about the Enlightenment, was that they needed to have, in order for a true freedom to happen, is that they needed to have consent of the people. Okay, number 9, if neither the president nor the vice president can serve, the position of presidency would be filled by
The Secretary of State.
Secretary of State. Anybody else have an answer?
Chief Justice.
Chief Justice. No, it's actually the Speaker of the House would be the next person in line. Okay, just so we kind of, that's another thing we'll be getting into when we talk about a little bit more deeper dive into the government. And our last and final question, which is kind of a fun one, is what date was the Declaration of Independence signed? Everybody kind of knows we celebrate the 4th of July, but was that actually the date that the actual Declaration of Independence was originally signed?
For some reason, in my mind, I have July 2nd, 1776.
Okay, we have a July 2nd. Anybody else have a
I'm
thought?
going to say July 4th, 1776.
Yeah, and that would be the most common thing. People think July 4th, but it actually was July 2nd, 1776 when it was actually signed, but we then finally ratified it on July 4th, and that's the date we actually celebrate now. But there was actually arguments back then that we'll kind of talk a little bit later about, that a lot of some of the original founding fathers wanted the celebration date to actually be the date of the 2nd when they actually signed it. But no, that was, you guys are well versed in this information on the founding fathers, so it's going to make this unit fun, and appreciate the time. And this is the end of my pre-assessment tools for week 3 assignment. Thank you.